Welcome back to the Vybrational Podcast. This week we've been exploring a core problem that quietly impacts countless people. I never feel finished. On Monday we examined why the mind naturally focuses on what remains undone rather than what has already been completed. Today I want to go deeper. Because for many people, the issue isn't that they aren't accomplishing enough. In fact, many of the people who struggle most with feeling unfinished are often the very people accomplishing the most. They are responsible, reliable, productive, driven. They show up. They carry the load. They solve problems. They get things done. Yet, despite all of that, they often carry a persistent feeling that they are somehow behind, somehow lacking, somehow not enough, and eventually a question begins to emerge. Why does accomplishment never seem to satisfy me for very long? The relief that masquerades as fulfillment. Think about the last time you completed something important. Perhaps it was a project, a deadline, a major task, a difficult conversation, a financial obligation, a personal goal. For a brief moment, there was relief. The pressure eased, the tension softened, the weight lifted, but then something happened. The mind immediately moved on. It began scanning for the next problem, the next responsibility, the next unfinished task, the next source of pressure, and suddenly the feeling disappeared. Many people mistake this temporary relief for fulfillment, but relief and fulfillment are not the same thing. Relief is the absence of pressure. Fulfillment is the presence of meaning. Relief says, "Thank goodness that's over." Fulfillment says, "That mattered." Relief is temporary. Fulfillment can linger. Yet much of modern life conditions us to pursue relief rather than fulfillment. We become addicted to crossing things off our list because for a brief moment it reduces the pressure. But because the pressure quickly returns, so does the need for another accomplishment, and another, and another. When achievement becomes identity. At some point in life, many people unknowingly begin tying their value to their productivity. They stop asking, "Who am I?" and begin asking, "What have I accomplished?" Their worth becomes measured by output, results, performance, progress, achievement. This can feel empowering at first. After all, achievement is rewarded. Achievement is praised. Achievement raises recognition. Achievement often creates opportunities. But there is a hidden cost. Because the moment your worth becomes attached to what you do, your sense of value becomes unstable. Now every unfinished project feels personal. Every setback feels personal. Every delay feels personal. Every unmet goal feels personal. You are no longer evaluating a circumstance, you are evaluating yourself. And that is a heavy burden to carry. The horizon problem. There is an interesting quality about horizons. No matter how far you travel, they continue moving. You never actually arrive at the horizon. You simply encounter a new one. Achievement works much the same way. The goal that once seemed life-changing eventually becomes normal. The breakthrough becomes expected. The accomplishment becomes yesterday's news, and the mind creates a new horizon, a new task, a new target, a new definition of success, a new requirement for happiness. This is why so many people arrive at destinations they once dreamed about only to discover they still feel incomplete. The destination changed, the pattern did not. The mind simply created a new horizon. The cost of living in the future. One of the greatest side effects of the chronic achievement seeking is that it teaches us to live somewhere other than where life is actually happening. The mind says, when I get there, when this is finished, when things settle down, when I solve this problem, when I finally catch up, The promise is always the same. Peace is waiting somewhere ahead. But life continues unfolding right here. In this conversation, in this breath, in this moment, in the ordinary experiences we often rush through while pursuing some future state of completion. And the tragedy is not that we pursue goals. Goals can be beautiful. Growth can be beautiful. The tragedy is when we postpone our entire life until those goals are achieved. The forgotten skill. There's a skill that modern culture rarely teaches, a skill that may be more important than productivity itself. The ability to pause and acknowledge, to acknowledge effort, to acknowledge growth, to acknowledge resilience, to acknowledge progress, to acknowledge how far you've come. Many people move through life like travelers who only notice the miles remaining while remaining blind to the thousands of miles already traveled. They have become experts at identifying deficiencies, yet beginners at recognizing victories. And because of that, nothing ever feels sufficient. Nothing ever feels complete. Nothing ever feels enough. The practice of enoughness. Enoughness is not complacency. Enoughness does not mean giving up. Enoughness does not mean lowering your standards. Enoughness simply means recognizing that your value does not increase or decrease based on today's level of productivity. Your worth is not sitting at the finish line waiting for you. Your worth exists now. Before the accomplishment, during the accomplishment, after the accomplishment. And when that understanding begins to deepen, something remarkable happens. Achievement becomes an expression of your life rather than proof of your value. You stop chasing accomplishments to become enough. You pursue them because they matter, because they serve, because they create, because they contribute, because they are meaningful. That is a radically different relationship with achievement. A reflection for today. Take a moment and ask yourself, what accomplishments have I normalized? What growth have I stopped recognizing? What challenge have I overcome that once felt impossible? What strength have I developed that I now take for granted? And perhaps most importantly, if I stopped measuring my worth by my productivity for one day, what would remain? Sit with that question, not to find an immediate answer, but to begin exploring a different possibility. A possibility that your value has never depended upon your output. A possibility that your worth was never waiting at the end of a to-do list. A possibility that enoughness is not something you achieve. It is something you remember. Closing reflection. The deepest freedom may not come from accomplishing more. The deepest freedom may come from no longer requiring accomplishment to prove your worth. You can still grow, still thrive, still build, still create, still dream. But you no longer have to earn the right to feel whole. Because wholeness is not a reward. It is your starting point. And from that place, achievement becomes far more joyful, sustainable, and meaningful. Until next time, keep shifting, keep growing, and keep remembering. You are far more than what you produce. Continuing the conversation on the Vibrational Stage Podcast. On the Vibrational Stage, we explore today's Vibe Shift podcast asked, why does accomplishment never feel like enough? On the Vibrational Stage, we explore why high performers often become trapped in chronic striving, the nervous system's addiction to productivity and pressure, the emotional cost of constantly moving the finish line, how success can quietly become a substitute for self-worth, the difference between fulfillment and validation, why some people feel guilty when they rest, practical exercises for creating internal completion. The difference between the two shows. The Vibe Shift podcast explores awareness, perspective, and understanding. The Vybrational Stage Podcast explores application, embodiment, and transformation. The conversation is only beginning. Join us as we go deeper into the lived experience of never feeling finished and how to finally step out of the cycle. Join us there by following the link in the show notes.